When Nancy Brophy published an article titled How to Murder Your Husband, readers didn't realize she intended for it to be a how-to manual rather than fiction. Years later, those same readers would have to ask themselves if she was plotting her crime even then, or if she merely revisited the idea when she made the decision to kill her husband. Whatever the case, Brophy's works always had a dark element, several with characters resorting to murder, usually the murderer of a lover or spouse. It was certainly an idea that she had, at the very least, amply entertained, and years of research probably gave her the confidence to believe she could get away with such an act herself. Nancy Brophy was born in Wichita, Texas, the middle child of two lawyers. During her early adult years, she attended university to study economics and married her first husband, who was a police officer. After her divorce, Brophy moved from Texas to Portland, Oregon in 1991 to enroll in the Western Culinary Institute, which later became Lake Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts. There, she met her second husband, Daniel Brophy, who would go on to become a culinary chef and instructor. The couple married in 1999, and in 2003, Brophy joined the Romance Writers of America to pursue her lifelong dream of being an author. She specialized in romantic thrillers, which usually involved researching crimes and weapons. While predominantly self-published, she managed to become surprisingly popular. Brophy wrote nonfiction as well, usually centered around the art of writing, and seemed more than capable of making a full-time career in her field. In 2011, Brophy wrote an article for a writing blog entitled How to Kill Your Husband. According to this article, Brophy believed there were 5 motives for murder, one of them being for money. She also listed several methods for killing a person, including using knives, garrote or strangling, poison, heavy equipment, and hiring a lover or a hitman. As for guns, she wrote loud, messy, requires some skill. If it takes 10 seconds for the sucker to die, either you have a terrible aim or he's on drugs. It was an article that, meant to be humorous or not, Brophy would come to regret ever writing. Life imitated art just 7 years later, on June 2, 2018. Chef Daniel Brophy was a well-respected instructor at the Oregon Culinary Institute. On that morning, he had arrived early to prepare for class. Daniel Brophy was standing with his back to the door, filling buckets with water and ice at a commercial sink. When someone entered the room, he either didn't hear them over the rush of the water, or he trusted them enough not to turn around. He was shot twice at close range, with the bullets piercing his spine and his heart. Daniel Brophy was then left sprawled on the floor for his students to find as they began arriving for class an hour later. When they found the bleeding body of their beloved instructor, they scrambled into action. While one student called 911, another began to administer CPR. A third student, not wanting Chef Brophy to be remembered that way, began to remove the other students who were gathering and kept them away from the crime scene. The students that viewed his body later said that his final expression was that of a man who was utterly heartbroken. This suggests, although it cannot be proven, that Brophy understood who killed him before he died. A forensic scientist with the Oregon State Police testified that Daniel Brophy was likely shot with a Glock pistol. The gun that had been used to kill him was never found, although it was the exact same model that Brophy purchased mere months before the death of her husband. The investigation quickly uncovered some concerning issues regarding the Brophy's finances. In November 2017, the couple took out $35,000 from his retirement account, or about half its total, to catch up with mortgage and credit card payments. Later that same year, Brophy started researching ghost guns, untraceable firearms that can be bought online and assembled at home. She spent $15,000 on guns and gun parts, a considerable amount considering the financial straits they were in. Brophy later claimed that this was research for a book and that her husband was aware of the fact, but the timing and amount of money made her explanation implausible. In January 2018, she received a ghost gun that she did not have the skills to assemble. In February, Brophy bought a Glock handgun barrel on eBay. The police theorized that she attached the barrel to another Glock pistol that she got at a gun show. For someone who had thoroughly researched untraceable weapons, Brophy left a disturbingly easy trail to follow. But perhaps she was counting on the other explanation that she was doing research to keep suspicion from falling on her. The murder began to look less and less like an outside job, as their attention became almost exclusively focused on Brophy. Another discovery was made. Video cameras captured footage of Brophy's van near the Oregon Culinary Institute at the time her husband was killed. When pressed for an explanation, Brophy claimed that she must have been on a coffee run, which she later forgot to mention because of the shock she suffered upon hearing about her husband's murder. During her trial, her defense team even called in a psychologist to testify that Brophy had retrograde amnesia stemming from the effects of that day. Forgetting such a thing, and only this, it seems, damaged her case rather than helping it in the way she had hoped. Brophy was arrested and formally charged in September 2018. Her trial began in the spring of 2022 and spanned 7 weeks. During the trial, the prosecution team focused on the financial motive, which was really the only thing they had against Brophy. Everything else pointed as to her being a happily married woman with no other romantic entanglements. They claimed that Brophy plotted for months to kill her husband in order to cash in on his $1.4 million life insurance policy and own their $300,000 home. Brophy refuted this when she was put on the stand to testify. She stated that she would do better financially if her husband had lived because they had planned to cash in their retirement plans as well as downsize their home and property. Still, this was just her word. There were no other witnesses who could testify that this was true. The prosecution freely admitted that the evidence against Brophy was purely circumstantial, but urged the jury to put the evidence together for themselves in a way that made sense. The jury, consisting of 7 women and 5 men, took 24 hours to deliberate. The evidence, as circumstantial as it appeared to be, was compelling. There were no other suspects and no other motives. Even the initial thought that Chef Brophy's death might be the result of a robbery was quickly dismissed, since nothing was taken or damaged. They returned with a unanimous verdict, declaring Nancy Brophey guilty of second-degree murder. Before her sentencing, Nathaniel Stillwater, Brophy's stepson, was allowed to speak. "You opted to lie, steal, cheat, fraud, and ultimately killed the man that was, for some reason still unbeknownst to me, your biggest fan," he told her. "You executed my father in an act of cold-blooded, premeditated murder, the man that did everything for you." Stillwater had been completely shocked to learn about the truth of his father's murder. Nancy Brophy had been his stepmother for nearly 27 years, and in all of that time, he had never seen any relationship troubles between the couple. They also had not divulged their financial issues. Immediately after his father's murder, Stillwater took a week off work to help her handle the loss as well as the investigation. The family was still adjusting to the devastation of the loss and trying to come to terms with the fact that Chef Brophy would never meet his grandson, all because of a woman they had known and loved for nearly a lifetime. Not only had they lost a father, but a mother figure as well. Through one act, a family was irrevocably torn apart. On June 13, 2022, Nancy Brophy was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. She was 71 years old at the time, which would put her at 96 years old before she is eligible. Perhaps oddly, Brophy's books are still for sale. In fact, her series, The Wrong, remains quite popular, and Brophy herself describes them as a form of escapism filled with rugged men, strong women, and romance. This form of escapism is probably something she will need herself in the future, although it is uncertain if she'll be allowed to write while in prison. Still, for someone with her imagination and inclination toward the criminal perspective, her location offers up ample sources for material.
97 killers, Chicago, he gets free when he still gets